Tom, earlier this week on Yahoo Sports, I wrote an article with the headline, Anthony Edwards is shooting it from deep like never before. Is the three ball evolution good or bad? It was kind of about Anthony Edwards as an intro into the league-wide discussion that a lot of people have been having about three-point rate now cracked over 40% for the first time. Boston even further increasing their three-point rate this year, and how other teams are having to do it. And Minnesota has been one of the teams to increase their three-point rate the most, and that's largely in part driven by Anthony Edwards himself. He's taken 90 shots this season. 53 of them have been three-pointers. I brought on Dane Moore, a great Timberwolves podcaster, earlier this week to talk about Ant's evolution. I'm curious about your thoughts, though. They're facing off against Denver on Friday night. First time those teams have been able to face each other again this season. I want to know your thoughts on Anthony Edwards. Is this a good thing for Ant to be doing this? Do you want to see more from Anthony Edwards getting to the basket, drawing fouls? Or is this just something that he has to do in order to beat the Bostons of the world?
So I think if he was taking these threes at the expense of low efficiency mid-range jumpers, I would say absolutely he should be taking these threes, because the fact of the matter is, if you're shooting 36% on long twos or 36% on threes, guess what? You should be taking more threes. I mean, my 7-year-old daughter can point out the math that you shouldn't be doing a lot of these mid-range jumpers that you almost never get fouled on. You're never going to the free throw line for. And with 3-point shots, you get the added bonus of the point, obviously, but you do have a higher foul rate on 3-pointers than you do on mid-range jumpers. So if you're shooting 36% on threes, you have to shoot 54% on twos to make up for it, right? The math at 36% is a 55% two. You're not going to do that on long range twos. You're not going to, unless you're Kevin Durant, unless you're Kawhi Leonard. You're not going to really shoot that efficiently on long twos. So if it's really a product of him moving a step behind the line and shooting that many threes, I'm all for it. However, Kevin, when you look at the numbers, Anthony Edwards has had one dunk this season. One. And it came in a fast break circumstance. So that means that Anthony Edwards, who last season had some of the best half-court dunks in NBA history, I guess in his entire career, Anthony Edwards going to the rack has produced all-time great highlights. He's had one dunk so far in the half-court, in the entire season, and it didn't come in the half-court setting. So last year, he had over 60 dunks in the regular season. His dunk rate is 1/5 of what it was last year. So Anthony Edwards, it's not just that he's taking more 3-pointers, and he's shooting really well at them. So I don't have a problem with the actual volume of 3-point shooting. It's if he's not attacking the rim and he is not going at the rim normally, that what we normally see with Anthony Edwards. So that's what I have a problem with. It's that he's settling for threes at the expense of attacking the rim. And that might be just, dude, I just played in the Western Conference Finals. I just played in Paris. And I'm not going to compromise my body for these amazing rim attacks at my age when I'm trying to win a championship. So I guess my answer to that is I like seeing the 3-point volume from Anthony Edwards, but not at the expense of the high-flying acrobatics that we love to see from Ant.
Only 9% of his shot attempts have come within 3 feet of the rim. He was at 23% last year. And as a rookie, he was at 31%, just to give some perspective on the subtle decline each year with him. 9% for Anthony Edwards is just, it's not enough. Unless, like you said, he's just saving his body. He brings it back in the playoffs and he starts going to the rim all the time. Maybe that's what it is. But I'm not totally convinced of that. He did get hurt in the West Finals, and he wasn't getting to the rim as effectively during those West Finals either. I think there's some concern there as well in my side of things. Maybe that he's still feeling that. I don't know. I have not heard anything about that when I've kind of poked around about that, but it's just very interesting to see this dramatic rise from 3-point range and then this just dramatic decline at the rim, whereas the mid-range stuff is fairly similar to what it was in terms of his trends in recent years as well. So It would be one thing if you were removing the mid-range diet in favor of threes, as you said, but he's not. He's removed the at-rim stuff.
Yeah.
And the dunks are just not there for him. And so I think with Anthony Edwards, I want to see him find a better balance over the course of the season. I think it's important for him. I want to see that to have any faith in the Wolves as, a finals contender.
As a larger conversation, though, Kev, I thought it was important to hit the Anthony Edwards as the face of this thing. Is just like, here's this people thinking he's the next Michael Jordan, and look at all the similarities with Michael Jordan, and yet he's, turning himself more like Damian Lillard. And I think from a product standpoint,
it's not good for
you
the
don't
league,
want that
for your potential face. No,
you don't want that. Like Damian Lillard's awesome. Steph Curry's awesome. He's not those guys, but he's trying to be with this kind of volume. And I do think elite 3-point shooters don't take enough 3-pointers because the math says so. Like, I think the math shows that elite 3-point shooters should be taking 10, 12, 15 3-pointers a game. And Anthony Edwards at this rate, like, yeah, if he's 41% from downtown or whatever it is, he is going to want to take that many. The math says so, but not at the expense of rim attack. So there's that. But I do think that all the teams who were thinking maybe we should take more threes this year, just watch the Boston Celtics win a championship at that kind of volume in ways that wasn't just about Steph Curry and the Warriors. Like Steph Curry and the Warriors, people would look at their teams and be like, we don't have a Steph. We're not going to take that many threes. But when the Boston Celtics are doing it with their entire roster launching threes, you're going to get teams like the Orlando Magic right now are shooting 50% of their shots from downtown. Orlando was at like 36% of their shots coming from beyond the arc last year, and now they're taking more than half. Now, I want to see how that kind of balances out with Paolo Banchero out. Maybe they take more to compensate for the loss of their star player, but I think Orlando's such a good example of a team that just watched Boston go nuts against the rest of the league and then go, yeah, we got to shoot as many as those guys did.
You have to shoot that many to keep up with Boston. You have to. You're going to lose the math battle. It's a necessity to keep up with Boston. Dallas found that out in the finals last year, but they're one of the teams that they haven't really acted on it. They're not shooting more threes this season, and they're not shooting threes well this season either. They are 14th in the NBA in three-point percentage so far this season. Dallas also is only 12th in three-point attempts on the season. But for the most part, most teams are jacking them up more often this year. They're following that Boston trend. 3-point rate is up over 40% on the year. And you got guys like Anthony Edwards. I think your point is spot on, Tom. This isn't just about the Wolves. It's not just about NBA. Should they move the 3-point line? We'll have much more time to talk about stuff like that. But it is about the face aspect where he was ascending. Will this be something fans latch on to? I'm not totally sure. People want to see dunks. And I know there's theories floating around out there about how, yes, more threes leads to more dunks. More threes leads to more driving lanes, more attacking lanes. And yeah, that makes sense in theory. But I got some help from Synergy Sports with looking at some of the trend data with 3-point shot attempts and the effect it has on dunks, percentage of shots at the rim. Synergy sent me over some stuff about that. And obviously everybody knows the way the percentage of 3-point shots have just skyrocketed over the last 20 years. Up over 40% this season. It was nowhere close in the 2000s, nowhere close even pre-Warriors, pre-Rockets. Dunks per 100 field goal attempts back in the 2006 season. There are 3.7 attempted dunks per 100 possessions. This season, 5.7. So you're getting 2 more dunk attempts per 100 possessions. You're getting countless more 3-pointers per 100 possessions than you were back then. I don't think the effect of 3-pointers is overly dramatic on the amount of dunks that we're seeing. You're getting a couple more attempts per game. You're getting a few more, but many of those are going to be fast break opportunities, not in the half court. I don't think the effect there is as much as some of the defenders of the increase in threes say it is from a highlight standpoint. I think the anecdotal examples of fans saying, no, it's getting to be too much, is something that the league needs to at least be listening to and thinking about when it comes to using the G League to just try some things out. Just try some things out and see how it affects the game. You get this minor league that you've used for a bunch of potential rule changes over the years. I think this year, it's too late probably, but next year, it's time to experiment with a different 3-point line or multiple different 3-point lines in the G League starting next year.
I love it. Yeah, let's use that as an incubator. There's a lot of kind of rule changes that are being implemented right now in G League. I would, you know what? I'll save it. I'll save it for a column or maybe a KOC episode next week. I got some ideas about how we can kind of balance this out. And it does
What
make me think more. Yeah. Like I would give it to you now, but it's not fully baked. So I want to make sure that my research and my idea, cause I don't do things kind of like, like I got to get all my muscle behind me before I come out with a strong take like this. When we're talking about changing the game, I will say, your data on from Synergy. So it's basically 3-point rate more than doubled and dunks basically doubled. But what we're saying in the aggregate, like we see one more dunk every game, but we see 12 more threes every game. So we're not really noticing the eye test. You would never really pick that up that, man, I'm seeing twice as many dunks in NBA games. And you're not picking that up, right? Even though it's double the amount. So I get what you're saying.
And it did flatline. It flatlined as well. 5.7 this year, but in 2014 it was 5.5.
Right.
So like
and 3-pointers
where the biggest increase
skyrocketing.
happened.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
I think also with injuries going up, you might have players like Anthony Edwards thinking twice about going hard at the rim in the regular season to preserve their bodies and do the whole load management thing and playing style. I think we don't talk about that enough, is that like there's load management in missing games, but I think there's also load management when it comes to playing style. And it's simply easier on the body to shoot a 3-pointer than it is to go up against 3 7-footers in the lane at full speed. So that's part of this too, is there's more space and there's more skill to get around guys and get up and dunk. But I think a lot of it is, hey, I want to be ready come June rather than January.